This is the moment America lost control of the Middle East. This is the visual that is shaking the Pentagon this morning. This is the notification that every military strategist in Washington has been dreading more than any missile strike, any terrorist attack, any geopolitical nightmare they have wargamed in the last decade. If you look at the waters off the coast of Iran right now, you will see something that would have been unthinkable just 48 hours ago. American naval vessels, the most powerful military machinery on the planet, retreating at full speed. The silence from the White House is deafening. The empty briefing room where answers should be coming from is dark. As of 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, April 15th, 2026, the United States military received a direct warning from Tehran. 30 minutes to evacuate all personnel from Iranian territorial waters or face what Iranian commanders called total destruction. And here is what nobody is talking about on cable news right now. America did not negotiate. America did not posture. America did not threaten back. America ran. Admiral James Crawford, already facing intense scrutiny over the botched Yemen operation 3 weeks ago, already under investigation for the leaked Syria documents, and already losing support from his own Joint Chiefs, has just been humiliated on the world stage by a regional power that America once dismissed as a second-rate military. In this deep dive, we are going to reveal the private conversations that took place in those 30 minutes of panic. We are going to expose who made the decision to retreat and why. We are going to show you the financial markets that collapsed the moment this news broke. And we are going to explain why this is not just a tactical withdrawal. This is the beginning of the end of American military dominance in the most strategic region on Earth. Admiral James Crawford is not just retreating. He is watching the entire foundation of his career, his reputation, and American credibility crumble in real time. 6 months ago, Admiral Crawford stood in the Rose Garden next to the president and announced what he called Operation Guardian Shield. The plan was simple, he said. Deploy a carrier strike group to the Persian Gulf as a show of force. Deter Iranian aggression. Protect shipping lanes. Assert American power in a region that was becoming increasingly unstable. It was supposed to be routine. America has been doing this for decades. Park a carrier group off the coast, fly some patrols, send a message, go home. Easy, safe, effective. He promised the American people that this was not an escalation. He promised Congress that there would be no boots on the ground. He promised our allies in the Gulf that America was still the dominant power, still the guarantor of security, still the force that kept the region stable. But the cost was not just the billions of dollars in deployment expenses. It was not just the risk of American sailors in hostile waters. The real cost was something far deeper. This deployment meant abandoning the diplomatic track that career State Department officials had been building for years. This meant destroying the fragile understanding that had kept direct military confrontation off the table. This meant betting everything on the idea that Iran would back down when faced with American steel. The opposition came fast. Retired generals warned that this was reckless provocation. Intelligence analysts said Iran's missile capabilities had advanced far beyond what the Pentagon was willing to admit publicly. European allies quietly told the administration that they would not support military action if this escalated. They argued that Iran was not the same country it was a decade ago. They said the balance of power had shifted. They said pushing this hard could lead to a confrontation America was not prepared to win. But Admiral Crawford dismissed it all. He went on television and said that American military supremacy was not up for debate. He told a Senate committee that Iran's threats were empty rhetoric. He assured everyone that America had overwhelming firepower, superior technology, and decades of combat experience that no regional power could match. He assumed Iran would never dare to directly confront American forces. He assumed that the mere presence of a carrier strike group would be enough to make Tehran blink. He assumed that American military dominance was still an unquestionable fact that everyone in the region understood and respected. He assumed wrong. At 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time on April 17, 2026, the USS Ronald Reagan received an encrypted emergency transmission. The communication came directly from Iranian Revolutionary Guard Naval Command. The message was not diplomatic. It was not a warning shot. It was a countdown. For exactly 2 minutes, there was nothing but silence on the bridge of the carrier. Officers stared at the message, reading it again and again, unable to believe what they were seeing. Then the alarms started. Emergency protocols activated. The Combat Information Center erupted into controlled chaos. Radar operators scanned for incoming threats. Fighter jets were scrambled to the flight deck. Missile defense systems went to active status. Witnesses on the ship described Admiral Crawford appearing on the bridge, his face pale, his uniform disheveled as if he had been pulled from sleep. He demanded to see the transmission himself. He read it once, then again, then he grabbed the communications officer and asked if this was confirmed. The officer nodded. It was real. It was official. And the clock was already ticking. But this was just the beginning. The nightmare was just starting to unfold. While Admiral Crawford was processing the ultimatum on the carrier, Iranian fast attack boats were also deploying from 3 separate naval bases along the coast. At that exact same moment, satellite reconnaissance detected multiple anti-ship missile batteries going active across Iranian positions. And most shockingly, intelligence intercepts picked up communications suggesting that Iranian submarines, which American planners thought were all accounted for, were now in positions surrounding the carrier group from underwater. Pause. The stock market does not wait for explanations. Within 7 minutes of the first reports hitting Bloomberg terminals, defense contractor stocks plunged. Lockheed Martin dropped 4%. Northrop Grumman fell 5%. The dollar weakened against safe haven currencies. Oil futures spiked 11% in pre-market trading. On the screens in trading rooms from New York to London, analysts were watching the same data. American military invincibility, the assumption that had underwritten trillions of dollars in global investment, was being tested in real time. The market does not care about rhetoric. It does not care about speeches. It cares about one thing. Can America still project power when directly challenged? And in those minutes, as the ultimatum deadline approached, the market was saying something terrifying. It was saying, maybe not. Admiral Crawford had 3 options. Option 1, ignore the threat and maintain position. Show strength. Call Iran's bluff. But intelligence was clear. Iranian missile systems were active. The threat was real. If they fired, American sailors would die. Option 2, respond with force. Strike the Iranian positions first. Show that America does not accept ultimatums. But that meant starting a war without congressional approval, without allied support, without any plan for what came next. Option 3, retreat. Pull back beyond Iranian territorial claims. Live to fight another day. But that meant humiliation. That meant surrender. That meant admitting that a regional power just forced the United States Navy to run. And in the command center, with 22 minutes left on the countdown, Admiral Crawford made his decision. He ordered full retreat, maximum speed. Get every ship out of range. Do it now. According to leaks from military personnel aboard the Reagan, an emergency secure call took place at 3:34 a.m. The participants included Admiral Crawford from the carrier, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in Washington, the Secretary of Defense who had been woken from sleep, and 2 National Security Council members connecting from different locations. We have learned from sources inside the Pentagon that the conversation was brutal. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs opened by asking Crawford what the hell happened. How did Iran get the drop on an entire carrier strike group? How did intelligence miss submarine deployments? How did we end up in a position where we are taking orders from Tehran? Audio supposedly leaked to defense reporters revealed the tension in Crawford's voice. He explained that the missile threat was real. He said that Iranian capabilities had been severely underestimated. He said that if they stayed in position, they were looking at potential catastrophic losses. The carrier itself could be hit. Thousands of American lives were at risk. The Secretary of Defense cut him off. This was not about casualties, he said. This was about credibility. If America retreats every time an adversary makes a threat, then every threat becomes an ultimatum. Then every adversary gets a veto over American operations. Then the entire post-World War II security order collapses because nobody believes in American resolve anymore. But then came the cold calculation. The National Security Council members looked at the situation from every angle. They looked at the upcoming election cycle, which could not afford images of American sailors killed in a confrontation that the public did not support. They looked at the economic impact, which was already showing up in market volatility and oil price spikes. They looked at the diplomatic disaster of explaining to allies why America had started a war in the Persian Gulf. They realized that Crawford had become a liability. His deployment had created the crisis. His assumptions had proven wrong. His presence in the Gulf was now causing more problems than it solved. The decision was made. Retreat now. Spin it as tactical repositioning. Get him out of there before this gets worse. As the call was ending, the audio feed supposedly picked up one final exchange. Crawford asked what he should tell the crew. There was a long pause. Then someone said, "Tell them they are following orders." The feed cut. Why did America retreat? Follow the incentives. Follow the political pressure. Follow the economic consequences. Admiral Crawford is a product of a military-industrial system that promised dominance but delivered vulnerability. He was told his entire career that American technology was unbeatable, that American firepower was overwhelming, that American will was unshakable. But the people who told him that wanted defense contracts, not actual war. His backers in Congress, the ones who supported his deployment, wanted to look strong on national security. But they wanted that without risk, without cost, without the possibility of body bags coming home right before an election. Sources say that within hours of the retreat order, senior senators who had praised the deployment just weeks ago were now calling the Pentagon demanding explanations. The message was clear: fix this quietly, or Crawford would be the scapegoat. This shifts power from the United States military to regional actors who now understand that American threats have limits. Crawford can no longer deploy forces without considering the real possibility of humiliating retreat. He can no longer assume that America's technological advantage translates into actual battlefield dominance. He can no longer count on unconditional support from political leaders who are calculating election impacts instead of strategic outcomes. He is just a figure following orders from people who are terrified of the consequences of actually using the military power they claim to possess. By ordering this retreat, America has sent a signal to every adversary and every ally. When pushed to the edge, when faced with real risk, when the choice is between potential casualties and certain humiliation, America will choose retreat. That signal changes everything. When Iran forced America to back down, that demonstrated something that changes calculations in capitals from Beijing to Moscow to Pyongyang. American military presence is negotiable under pressure. What historians will call the Hormuz humiliation reveals a fundamental truth about modern American power. The gap between capability and will has never been wider. America still has the most advanced military technology on Earth. It still has the biggest defense budget, the most sophisticated weapons, the most powerful Navy, but none of that matters if political leaders are unwilling to accept the costs of actually using it. This is not a temporary setback. This is a structural problem that reveals the limits of American power in an age where regional powers have developed the ability to inflict unacceptable costs even on a superior force. The legal ramifications are significant. Congress is now demanding hearings. The Senate Armed Services Committee has announced an investigation into intelligence failures. The claims include gross miscalculation of Iranian capabilities, unauthorized deployments without proper congressional notification, and reckless endangerment of American service members. This is not coming from the usual critics. This is coming from members of Crawford's own party who are desperate to distance themselves from a disaster. If these hearings reveal that the Pentagon knowingly underestimated Iranian threats, that could trigger a complete overhaul of military assessment procedures. If it comes out that Crawford deployed forces based on outdated intelligence or political pressure rather than sound military judgment, that could end careers across the defense establishment. Here is the domino effect. If America cannot maintain a carrier presence in the Persian Gulf without retreating under Iranian pressure, then every security guarantee America has made to Gulf allies becomes questionable. If those allies start doubting American protection, then they start making their own arrangements with regional powers. If Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other Gulf states start accommodating Iranian demands because they cannot count on American support, then America loses its primary leverage in the world's most important energy region. If America loses influence in the Gulf, then global oil markets shift toward powers that can actually project force there. If oil markets shift, then the dollar's role as the global reserve currency weakens. If the dollar weakens, then America's ability to finance its military through deficit spending becomes more expensive. We are looking at a cascading failure of the entire system that has allowed America to maintain global military presence on borrowed money for decades. China is watching this. Beijing sees that America retreated from a regional powers ultimatum. They see that American political leaders are more afraid of casualties than committed to maintaining credibility. A humiliated America is an America that might not defend Taiwan when the moment of truth arrives. Russia is calculating the same equation in Ukraine and Eastern Europe. North Korea is reassessing what provocations they can get away with. Where are America's European allies? Silence. France has not issued a statement. Germany has not called for solidarity. The UK has offered only a vague comment about diplomatic solutions. Why? Because they know this was a self-inflicted disaster. They warned against the deployment. They said Iran was being underestimated. Now they are distancing themselves from a failure they predicted. They are positioning themselves as the reasonable voices who can maintain channels to Tehran that America has just burned. This creates a split in the Western alliance that cannot be healed. On one side, there are the Americans who still believe in military dominance and are humiliated by this retreat. On the other side, there are the Europeans who see this as proof that the American approach of military-first policy no longer works in a multipolar world. A divided West cannot maintain the pressure on Iran, cannot contain Chinese expansion, cannot manage the global order that has kept relative peace for 80 years. Reports from Pentagon insiders describe Admiral Crawford as a man who has barely slept since the retreat order. He is obsessed with media coverage, checking news sites every few minutes, watching his reputation collapse in real time. He keeps asking his staff the same question over and over. How did this happen? How did we not see this coming? He is experiencing what psychologists call acute reputational trauma. The identity he built over 40 years of service, the image of himself as a defender of American power, has been shattered in 30 minutes. Staff are reportedly keeping him away from press briefings. They are limiting his contact with political leaders. They are trying to manage a crisis that goes beyond military failure. This is a psychological breakdown happening to someone who holds massive responsibility but has lost all credibility to exercise it. The carrier group is not just a collection of ships. It is a symbol of American commitment to maintaining order in the world's most volatile region. It represents the idea that America can go anywhere, do anything, and face any challenge. Admiral Crawford wanted to demonstrate continued American dominance. He ended up revealing American vulnerability. He wanted to deter Iranian aggression. He ended up proving that Iran has developed the capability to force American retreat. You can manipulate press coverage, but you cannot manipulate the basic facts of what happened in those waters. You can spin the word retreat as tactical repositioning, but you cannot spin away the images of American ships fleeing at maximum speed from an Iranian deadline. Reality wins. The truth is that America was given an ultimatum by a regional power, and America complied. That is the reality that every military planner, every ally, every adversary now has to factor into their calculations. So where are we? Admiral Crawford is isolated at sea, commanding a fleet that just demonstrated the limits of American power. The Pentagon has turned on him, preparing to blame him for intelligence failures. Congress has turned on him, scheduling hearings to investigate the disaster. His political backers have turned on him, desperate to avoid association with a humiliation this visible. He is the commander of the most powerful naval force ever assembled, and yet he is powerless to change the narrative, powerless to restore credibility, powerless to undo what happened in 30 minutes off the Iranian coast. As we head into the next few weeks, expect Crawford to become increasingly defensive. He will try to blame intelligence failures, political constraints, impossible situations. He might try to argue that retreat was the responsible choice, the decision that saved American lives. He could even attempt to position this as proof that America needs more military spending, better technology, stronger commitments. But the damage that cannot be undone is this. The world saw America blink. The system that allowed America to dominate the Middle East for decades is broken. When regional powers understand that American military presence comes with acceptable limits, when they know that threatening enough pain will force American withdrawal, there is no going back to the old assumptions. The credibility is destroyed. American security guarantees cannot be trusted the way they once were. When allies and adversaries both conclude that American power is more about appearance than actual willingness to fight, that changes every negotiation, every alliance, every calculation about who is really in charge. Subscribe. We will be monitoring the Senate hearings scheduled for next week. If Crawford testifies under oath about what really happened in those 30 minutes, we will break down every word. This is history. This is the moment American military dominance in the Middle East ended not with a bang, but with a 30-minute countdown and a retreat order. Watch closely.